America for making me pay, or for making me work 4 fucking jobs. 4 jobs! I just want to live in peace, America.
Hey, I often wonder if most Americans know how the rest of the world feels about them. I mean, I know they don't give a fuck, but it would be interesting to check out the contrast between what they think or believe they stand for and what they actually stand for in the eyes of the rest of the world, and many Americans for that matter. Because I guarantee you that if you ask the vast majority of Americans what they love most about their country, their answer will be freedom. Freedom. They love freedom.
The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance, with the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take.
And they certainly believe themselves to be the most free people in the world. I mean, recently Elon Musk has been going on about the First Amendment and freedom of speech on Twitter, at the same time as they're going about trying to ban TikTok. And I often wonder what they mean by freedom, because from my perspective, America is one of the least free countries in the world.
But rather you are exploiting others. Your system is based on exploitation, oppression. If it was built through slavery, genocide, imperialism, hegemony, then can we call you democratic?
System malfunction.
Been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth, they tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own. Look how we grow out the concrete in 2 rows, stuck by the code. I'm trying to take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be.
System malfunction.
What is happening, YouTube? It's Download Malfunction, back in here with another one for you. I know that I've been away for a couple of weeks, and I deeply apologize for that. But it hasn't been for naught. It's been for a very good reason. And that is, I've been beefing up the system for us so we can drive some process improvements to make this channel more efficient, which is completely opposite from the current state of our country, which appears to be in a free fall to the depths of hell, while the elite stand off to the side to watch their citizens' asses get licked by the inferno. And as per usual, I was digging around on TikToxic, and I came across some extremely enlightened information put forth by some very intelligent individuals that I had to bring to YouTube to share with you all. Now, I would imagine at this time that it's clearly understood that the world is in the possession of a small few, while the vast majority of us, as I've said in other videos, are the indentured servitudes to that eclectic little group. And if it just so happens that you're still living under that shadow of doubt, then I invite you to take a listen to what these individuals have to say in hopes that it will remove some of the filter and knock the sleep out of your eyes so that you can see clearer. But before we get into it, I'm going to ask you for that virtual handshake. So if you can recheck your subscription at the door, because we know there's some content suppression taking place here, like this video and share it out to all your friends and family who you think might benefit from this content. And I deeply appreciate and thank you for that.
Now tell us your take, your thoughts on the US style democracy.
If you're not putting people first, if you're not committed to common prosperity, if you're not helping others develop, but rather you are exploiting others, your system is based on exploitation, oppression. If it was built through slavery, genocide, imperialism, hegemony, then can we call you democratic? I have never really understood this thesis that the United States is a paragon of democracy. It's not. It's not democratic inside the United States. Most Americans would agree with me at this point, right? Most Americans don't like the current president. They don't like the previous president. They don't like the choices that they have, and yet they're stuck, right? But all the more, the simple fact that the United States is thoroughly anti-democratic in its foreign policy. It invades and conquers other countries, it occupies them, it destroys them, it assassinates leaders, it imposes its values on others. This is not democracy. This is the opposite of democracy.
I don't know about you, but there is no lies detected here. This guy is simply laying down the facts as it relates to the formation of this country. And as he said, and these aren't my words, if you're not putting people first and you're not committed to prosperity, nor are you committed to assisting others in their achievements, then how can you call this a democracy? Especially when this whole entire entity was based on a system of exploitation built on the backs of slaves and oppression. You tell me, where does this word democracy have any room to exist in this context? But what is always a massive puzzle to my mind is how good of a job America does in packaging this up in a really nice bow and propagandizing it to the rest of the world. But when you really peel back all the layers, this is just not true. And the truth of the matter is, America is dealing with a tremendous case of psychopathy.
But the other values they espouse, like truth and justice, also just don't stand up to a second scrutiny. And we just have to look right to the very top with the kind of people that speak on behalf of the President and the government of the United States, Antony Blinken and everybody below him, who just consistently lie and lie and lie and lie. And as for justice, the most overcrowded prison-for-profit system in the world that is basically an extension of slavery and Jim Crow, and the rampant racism, not just in the prison industrial complex, but throughout society, with the repression of DEI, the repression of CRT, and the insane rise of extreme right organizations, white supremacy and Christian nationalism. So I think for most of us observing from the outside, the whole truth and justice idea is just a fucking joke. Rampant, out of control capitalist greed, the hegemony of the 1%, governed entirely by money and greed, and the desire for power, and war, 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 because it's profitable. And the idea of any underlying ideology beyond those things I've just listed is non-existent. It's a dream of the American people that they still believe in. They still believe that there's an underlying ideology. And yes, to a degree there is, and that ideology is might is right and money rules. It is rapidly becoming the most nihilistic society on the planet. And the worst thing about it is, those actually in power do not give a flying fuck about the 99.5% of people below them, who they just fire up with insane and meaningless causes to keep them distracted. They keep finding enemies that don't really exist and supporting friends who are nothing like what a real friend would be. But there is hope. More and more and more people within America and certainly outside of the United States are waking up to the truth of what I'm saying here and pushing back against it. And the whole point of this video is to point out to you that these are the universal truths seen by many people. And if you can see the truth of that, then you can start pushing back in terms of protest, boycott, sanctions, your vote, your political activity, liking, sharing, reposting these messages, talking to people, calling out shitty behavior, holding your politicians to account. Things can still change. Because beneath all of that, the vast majority of United States people, of Americans, are beautiful, caring, empathetic human beings that have been blinded by the flood of bullshit from the commercial media and their politicians and their pastors.
I think this is telling. This individual is not even American. Based on his accent, I would venture to guess probably England or Britain or something like that. But the fact that he sees the reality of what America is from the outside speaks volumes. I think a lot of people are fed up with America and all of its lies, as he said early on. They espouse these ideas of truth and justice, but like I said earlier, this stuff just doesn't exist when you really look at it. He talked about the prison industrial complex. If this doesn't raise any questions to you, then you first want to make sure that you've taken your medication for today. And if you found that you've done that, then you might want to go schedule an appointment somewhere so that someone can help you sort out your brain, because it's probably mush and useless to the rest of us. I think the fact remains that the rest of the world is waking up, and they can clearly see the fall of this country that we have for so long touted as the ideal democracy, when in the end, it's really just a blinding light of deception.
They have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought, everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior, we are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, corrupt, moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. So we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all, and usually we compromise them under this system in terms of maybe a videotape. Maybe Barack Obama is gay. If I was in charge of the world and I was a psychopath and completely drunk on my own power, you can bet damn sure that's what I would do. I wouldn't allow anyone in a position of power who wasn't completely compromised.
Man, if you can't align with what he just said by looking at your objective reality, then sadly, this is a barren place. As far as I can see, those who are at the top of the food chain or who have all the money have done some nefarious things in their past. There's no reason for me to say any names. Just look at the guys you know who have all the cheese. If you were given access to be able to dig in to just how these people acquired their money, you would find that they've done some shady stuff off the beaten path. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and it always seeps into my thought processes at various times of the year. If I was to go out in the middle of the street and slap your grandmother a couple times, I'm gonna find myself in jail, doing an anger management program for a couple of years, and probably on probation or parole or something like that. Basically, I'm going to jail. And that is for a regular American citizen. But listen to the current situation that's taken place with the assistance of the United States. That's supposed to be this beacon of truth, honesty, and democracy, where we've allowed someone to raise a population of millions of people from their ancestral homes, supplied the weaponry so these people can delete more than 35,000, mostly women and children and men. And all that we're having is a conversation on whether or not this person should be simply arrested and have to face justice. But additionally, what's more demoralizing is the American people and their mindsets. It's like they're a simple-minded flock of sheep that never asks any questions. They just follow along and graze on whatever's being thrown at them, i.e. propaganda. And I do have to commend the people who were behind this machine, who knows what it takes to influence the minds of us and make us do what it is that they need us to do.
Something that Americans don't realize is abnormal is that your government is supposed to be providing you with public transportation. I went from paying $500 per month to get around my city in America to paying $10 per month abroad. The government is supposed to be using our tax dollars to provide us with good public transportation. But instead they push car dependency because they are the ones monopolizing the oil and gas industry. Every other developed nation has some form of adequate public transportation, but our government forces us to take part in one of the top 5 leading causes of death in America just because they don't want to provide public transportation. The only way you can get around is by car, and cars nowadays cost anywhere between like $10,000 to $50,000 for an adequate vehicle. You have to pay so much money in gas, hundreds every single month. You have to pay hundreds for insurance, hundreds for a car payment. You have to pay hundreds, thousands for repairs every year. Like, it's so much money. It doesn't even bring you a return on your investment because the second you buy it and drive it off the lot, it's lost half its value and then keeps depreciating from there. Not only that, but it makes our infrastructure look like crap. And then there's this notion that if you don't have a car or you don't have a license, then you're viewed at as like a loser or something. And before people start coming in my comments like, oh, what about New York? What about New England? You know darn well that the majority of America has zero public transportation. Oh, well, it's because America's too big. America is roughly the same size as Europe, except in Europe, they actually have public transportation. And not only that, but they have to have international cooperation in order to create and maintain it too. America has the money and resources to provide the whole country with public transportation, but they profit off of keeping us car dependent.
All I heard from her is pay, and then when you're done with that, pay a little bit more. That is the construction of America. This system only extracts from its citizens while giving them very little, or if anything, or just enough to keep you quiet and struggling so that you don't have any time or energy to really see what's going on because you're giving everything that you have just to survive. And she's right. America has the money. All you would have to do is look at how much tax dollars are spent on building a new fighter jet. Do we really need to design a new one to compete with the one we just spent hundreds and hundreds of $millions on the year before? And somehow we can't find the dollars to support the veterans who were living on the streets in and around the city who once flew those same planes. America does not care about you. And I've stated this in many videos, so I urge you to visit the channel, check out the library, and before you do that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video if you think it's worthy. But they don't care about us. We are just pawns in a larger game. I've always said we are just indentured servants in this system who are taxed heavily just to exist here. And in my opinion, there's really no other way around this than a revolution. And that's with a capital R. Because what was happening prior to 1776, or the reason 1776 happened, was because there was taxation without representation. You tell me, what's the difference between then and now?
Fuck you, America, for making me pay, or for making me work 4 fucking jobs! 4 jobs! While I'm in college in rural fucking Tennessee and I can barely pay my own fucking rent, and it's not fucking fair. It's not fucking fair anymore. It's never been fair, not in my lifetime. And will it ever be fair? No, because I'm a woman in America. Oh my God. I just want to live in peace, America. And I will one day. Probably somewhere fucking else.
System malfunction.
I'm tryna take it as high as it go. I've been by the code, you know how I be. I am a product of putting my curses to rest on my family tree. Can see growth. They tell me they free, but they work for the man. I can't relate, I did it on my own.